It's time for Two Guys and a Goalie with Dustin Nielsen, Matt Cassian, and the goalie, Joaquin Gage.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a Monday episode of Two Guys and a Goalie. Nielsen, Gage, and Cass with you as always. Two Guys and a Goalie brought to you by our wonderful partners at CoolBet. If you want to go bet on the Stanley Cup Final or pretty much anything in the world right now, you can just go to coolbet.com. If you've not yet signed up for an account, very easy to sign up and use the code Two Guys, the number 2 and the word guys when you sign up, so they know we sent you. We're going to get to lots of stuff. The Vancouver Canucks have swooped in and taken Kuzmenko, a guy that none of us really knew anything about anyway. So we'll have that discussion anyway about opportunity maybe in Vancouver that may not present itself here in Edmonton. But, we are 3 fathers, and only one of us is wearing a medal today. So, Gager, what the hell's that thing?
Oh, obviously I won this weekend. I am the best dad ever. I've got my medal proudly wearing. I see you guys didn't receive one. So congratulations to everyone who participated. I know Dusty constantly talks about what a great father he is, but obviously not good enough to get a medal. And this medal comes with a little extra spice, boys. Let me show you. Let me just
What? Oh, the medal plays, you're the best around. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I've never taken this thing off.
I want one. Cass, did you get a medal? Did you get anything? What was your Father's Day like?
No, it was really good. I'll have to send it to you guys. Maybe I can show it here if you can see. I'll pull up. I got a picture my wife sent of it. So you'll probably appreciate my gift that I got. So if you bear with me here, because I got to find it. There it is.
We should also note that Cass is at the cabin today.
Yeah.
What is that? Move it down just a bit.
I got to figure out. I got to get it into the camera.
I am there. Oh, you got 3 lightsabers?
So it's a little wooden. Yeah, three lightsabers on there,
yes.
saying Callie or Emery, Callie, and Joe or Joey. So it's a good little, nice little gift.
You know what's funny is when you said you guys are probably going to be jealous or like this, I was going to blurt out, "Oh, did you get a lightsaber?" And you actually got like a little wooden thing with the 3 lightsabers on it. God, that was perfect.
Lightsabers with their names.
That was perfect.
Sweet. Yeah, pink, purple, and yellow lightsabers on there. So pretty sweet.
Well, that is nice. That is nice. All right, if you're watching on the live stream, feel free to ask any questions. We know, it's the off season for the Oilers, and there's lots of buzz, and we'll get to a few things happening there. But Andrei Kuzmenko, who had the Oilers on short list, apparently came into town. I think I saw a picture of Ken Holland had him at Joey, and they're trying to pitch him on the organization. He ends up posting on his Instagram like less than an hour ago that he is going to sign with the Vancouver Canucks wearing the number 96, which of course a number that Pavel Bure did wear during his time in Vancouver. I'll tell you right now, in Edmonton, that's not going to go over very well. You can't wear numbers even close to legends, and you're going to get criticized there. A lot of people look at it and go, and I believe I don't know if it was Sarah Volley or somebody else who tweeted and said, it kind of just came down to promises of some top 6 time, some key power play time. And Cass, certain organizations are going to be in a position to offer that. Other organizations aren't. And to be honest with you, I don't think Oilers fans should have wanted the Oilers to be like, yeah, you're locked into the top 6. Come here and play with McDavid or Draisaitl. I think they're a team in a spot that should be beyond that now. Aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, they certainly couldn't guarantee him top unit PP time.
Yeah.
Like, what
Evander Kane didn't even get that when he was here.
Yeah, you're not going to take those guys off. So, to me, it's kind of like, well, they weren't able to, Ken Holland wasn't willing to just make something up and to tell him something that wasn't true. And he probably would have sniffed it out anyways to say that, he's just not telling the truth here. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the Canucks probably were able to promise more, and they can follow through with that more than Edmonton can in this situation. So I don't know. I don't begrudge a player wanting to go where there's a little bit more opportunity for him to make the transition. So it is what it is. Unfortunate for the Oilers. I think he could have been actually a decent piece, although I don't really know anything about him. But enough teams are interested in him that I'm like, there's got to be something there. And, if you could have got him on a value contract, then it may have been a nice fit. But obviously not for the player, so not to be.
Basically going to be an entry-level deal, $925K. Low Tide, if you want something to read on him, Low Tide had a decent breakdown on him. He's an offensive weapon, but lacks in the defensive side of the game, which I think is not uncommon for a lot of guys who might be coming over at this stage of their career. Gager, he had 3 decent years in the KHL. Then he had this blow-up year this past year, has an opportunity to come to the NHL and take a crack at something that he's probably wanted to do for quite some time. But the game is, we've seen a lot of guys. Remember when Gusev dominated forever and came over and people were expecting huge things from him, and sometimes it just doesn't click for guys because the game is much, much different. You spent a ton of time playing over there. It's very much a different game, isn't it?
You won't find a bigger advocate than me for European hockey, Dusty, but especially all things considering, this is supposed to be a very highly offensive, skilled player, like to help you out scoring goals and stuff, but things happen so much quicker and faster in the NHL that it's going to take him, I don't care who you are, it's going to take time to adjust properly and get used to the players, the physicality, and realizing you don't have as much time as you do on the big ice. There's a big, huge guy on you quick, and it's going to be really difficult. Now, saying that, he's going to be playing with good players, so that's good. We'll see what he's about. I'm in the same boat with Cass. I don't know much about this guy, but when you really look at it, I'm kind of glad the Oilers kind of didn't get this. I don't think that's what they really need at the moment. A young, unproven person to play in their top 6. I think they've got enough of those in their own system that they have question marks with, and I would like to see someone come in with possibly a little bit more experience.
Yeah, a more experienced player that you could possibly mix in your top 6 a little bit would certainly be a good thing. Rick Dhaliwal, who does a great job, got his own show going, has a lot of good contacts down in Vancouver. He pointed out that Bruce Boudreau drove 6 hours to meet with Kuzmenko, and their general manager drove 4.5 hours. And I probably could have flown to certain situations, but he said that the player was very impressed with that commitment. Cass, I think when they're trying to impress a player, does distance driven to meet with player make a difference? Is that a big one for you? Like I saw it pointed out, and I'm like, I don't know if that really matters too much.
Well, I think it's a level of commitment. You're showing a level of sacrifice of your own time to be able to meet because you value that individual, so you're willing to give up something for it, which I understand. Now, was it necessary? That's another question, but I actually do think that factors in, just like it would factor into a lot of negotiations, let's call it, or when you're trying. Let me put it this way. If you were willing, let's say you guys, I know you're both happily married to women for, well, all 3 of us that are way better than us individually. We really did it. If you drove 6 hours to see them out of your way, would they appreciate that? Yep, probably.
Yeah.
They probably would. It's not the game breaker. It's not the only thing. It's not the final thing. It's not the difference maker, but it could be. It could be that little extra something. So I think it does matter a little bit.
So you're saying Bruce Boudreau got to make out with Kuzmenko because he drove 6 hours. That's how I kind of approached things back in the day.
He's making out with the contract.
Yeah. No, they got it done. So I guess it can't be signed until July 13th, but obviously opportunity there in Vancouver for Kuzmenko. Their roster not as strong as maybe the one in Edmonton. They don't have McDavid and Draisaitl, but you can't promise a guy that he's going to have the opportunity to play with those guys. Anyway, okay, a couple other things from the Oilers, and then we'll dive into a rather remarkable start to the Stanley Cup final. Jay Woodcroft, no deal done just yet. Gager, what do you think these discussions are like? I don't know. Do you think he's grinding him for a few bucks, or is it a discussion about decision making, or what? What do you think's taking so long to get something like this done?
I don't think it's I don't think it's too long yet, Dusty. I know that when a coach is done, there's a lot of kind of paperwork to do. Like he does his final report, and I think there's a process of going over the season and things and going through those. And if it goes another couple weeks now, I would start to get a little bit wondering a little bit more. But I think the whole end of the season kind of things that you do from the whole coaching staff and what the GM wants and seeing all these reports, I think that's kind of gets finalized over these last few days here. And now okay, we've done all this. Now we're going to move forward. I wouldn't be too worried about it right now, but yeah, if this goes another couple weeks, then I would start to, are they looking elsewhere? Just possibly looking at all their options.
Cass, this is done by the end of the month, right? That just seems to be the logical thing.
Kind of has to be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about the team looking elsewhere. I'd worry about, is Woodcroft looking elsewhere? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Is someone else going to be swooping in here and offering something pretty nice? It's a possibility, but
yeah, still a few places looking for coaches. There's still a few places looking for coaches. Haven't seen his name pop up too much in other places.
It'd have to be really sweet though, for like it would have to be a huge deal to say, hey, you got a chance to be the coach of Connor and Leon. I think that's a pretty
highly unlikely, right? Like that's where you want to be. You had success with them as well. You're familiar with all the guys that are going to be coming up and trying to fight for jobs. So I think that does make a huge difference. Another thing that's been mentioned, LeBron had it in one of his recent pieces over at the Athletic, and that was interest from the Oilers in both Kulak and Kane. And I want to play this fun little game in a world where you can't keep both, because I think honestly it's going to be difficult to keep both. So, Cass, let me throw this at you first. Would you rather have Kulak at, let's say, 2, and I'm probably coming in maybe a little bit low on both of these guys, but just for discussion's sake, would you rather have Kulak at $2.75 million and no Evander Kane, or Evander Kane at $6.5 million and no Brett Kulak?
How long are the deals? Are we allowed
you always have to ask questions, don't you? Let's say 3 years.
Okay.
Let's say 3 years on both.
Years. Okay. 3 years on both. I'd take Kane. And the reason being is that I think those players are a lot harder to find. Not that Kulak isn't good, and not that he's a great fit for this team. Not that they need a player like him. I believe they do. But if you're making me choose between the two, Evander Kane's that can put away that many goals are a little tougher to come by. So that's the way I'm leaning.
Gager, which side you going with here?
I'm gonna go Kulak, man. I think he's the most important piece. The way he can move on the back end, he's shown he can move up even to the top pairing. There is an edge to his game. And look, the Oilers, if we look at the defensemen in the Stanley Cup final, they're deep back there, both teams. And to get
Gager freeze. Did we lose Gager? Cass, are you still here?
We did. I'm still here.
Okay, we just lost Gager. That was weird. I thought it was me that froze, so I was waiting for you guys to kick back in. Well, yeah, I know. It was weird. We're both sitting there, and I was kind of just thinking, it'll kind of pause, and then Gager will come back. He'll reconnect. I would say this. This is the reason I would look at this. I know I asked the question. I'm going to answer it as well. Like the 6.5, and I guess this might be a little bit of a chintzy way to go about it, but the 6.5 for Kane could be Kulak and McLeod and Yamamoto for that same $6.5 million, right? So to me, I think there's a lot of value to be had there in 6.5. Do you think there's any chance, Cass, that they actually keep both?
I don't think so. The chance of them keeping Kane to me is just so unlikely, just from the dollar value. Because even you're saying 6.5, the likelihood of it being 6.5 is pretty low. I guess it depends on happens with all the grievance thing with Kane and whatever ends up going down with that. But I mean, I see him as being more 7.5 or 8, so that's even less room. So I don't think it's very likely that it happens where both of them can be kept. I just cap wise, I don't know how you make it work.
I don't think Gager's frozen a long time. And I think it's karma for bragging about his medal. I think that's exactly what happened here. That's
True.
what you get, right? Best dad ever can't even stay connected for an entire episode.
He's probably still talking. He's probably still talking, just thinking that he's got the floor. That's why it's taken him so long.
No, he texted me. He said he's trying. Right now. He's trying to reconnect right now. So hopefully be able to reconnect with Gager. We'll get into the Stanley Cup final. But the first angle I want to take a look at it is with what you're seeing right now from Colorado, Cass, against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Does it change your opinion of the way that the Oilers went out in any way, shape, or form?
No, I didn't think the Oilers went out horribly at all. I mean, like I would have liked them to have won a game or two. I thought there was a game or two that was winnable, that they should have or could have won. But you were against a better team and a team that was healthier than you were. And so I don't feel shame at all for the Oilers and how they went out. Like I thought heading into this series, and maybe this is just, overreaching from the question a little bit, but I thought that Tampa was going to have to win the first two to have a chance to win the series, because I thought you'd have to both. You would have to pounce on Colorado before the rust was off. Kind of like Tampa, what happened to Tampa almost, like where they got beat the first two games and then, ended up winning 4 straight. I thought it was going to be a similar situation in that if you gave Colorado the chance to get rolling, that they just weren't going to be stopped. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing. It softens the blow a little bit, seeing how good Colorado is and everyone watching them against another really good team. Like it not that I was feeling this sting before, because I don't know, I was, I guess, okay with what happened to the Oilers, but it certainly puts it in perspective.
All right, Gager, does that medal say worst internet ever now, or does it still say greatest dad ever? I'm just curious. Yeah.
There's sacrifices to wearing this medal, Dusty. There's sacrifices that we have to make, but no. Yeah. So we're back. That was weird.
That was weird. The conversation that you missed, Cass, and I kind of started with, before we kind of dive into the Cup final itself, I asked Cass if the way that Colorado looks to be taking it to Tampa, has it changed your view at all on the way the Oilers went out against that same Colorado team? Like, do we just sit here now and accept that the Avs are just a bloody juggernaut this year?
That Cale Makar, man, it's just a different element that teams have had to deal with, and they have no real answer. And the speed of the Avalanche is, you just see how throughout their whole lineup, they're just they operate at such a high pace that it looks like it's weird to see the Tampa Bay Lightning kind of a step behind a little bit. So yeah, they're awesome. They're unbelievable. I heard Cass say they had to win the first two. I would have said maybe one for sure, but and to make the best goalie on the planet look really human is disheartening. I do think I can't see Tampa just laying down here and Colorado steamrolling them, though. I think tonight's going to be a completely different type of game, but I think this is a huge game, though. If Colorado gets this, it's over. It's done. There's nothing that they'll be able to do. You can't beat the Colorado Avalanche 4 games in a row. No chance.
Well, that Tampa's going to be looking at this and going, this is the same spot we were in last series.
Yeah.
You know what? We just got to get our feet moving here. We just got to get things rolling. Let's get that first goal, and then we're going to be okay. Like that's the mentality. But if Colorado comes out and starts to steamroll them, like, oof, it's going to be tough to push back, Gager. So we'll see. I think so much of this game is going to depend on like that first 10 minutes of it.
It's so hard too, because you'd think with the way the Colorado Avalanche look, you think just offense, but they defend so well too, and defend with speed and their forward check. That's a hard team to play against, because if you really look at it, I would have to say that their weakest link is their goaltending, but they're making it almost impossible for the Lightning to get to them.
I'm looking at Colorado overall, and Nathan MacKinnon. He has been in the league. I believe this is his 9th season. And the first 4 years of his career, he was like a 50 point guy. And then his 5th year, he went up to 90 points, and he has really never looked back. And you see where they were. I believe when they got Cale Makar, they were dead last in the league that year, lost the lottery, moved from 1st pick to 4th pick, and got Makar at 4th pick anyway, and has ended up making a massive difference. And if you look at their roster in 2017 compared to their roster now, I mean, Landeskog and Rantanen and McKinnon, the core guys were still there, but a lot of the other pieces that they've brought in have helped change things. But Cass also, and it sounds so crazy to simplify it like this, but a franchise-type defenseman completely changes your franchise, does it not?
Well, every time we've talked about it before. I talk about this with people all the time. It's just, I am of the opinion that even if you look at the teams in the top 4 this year, that teams generally do not win, typically do not win without that stud defenseman. Teams usually don't win cups without stud defensemen. You know, Tampa with Edmund, Makar with Colorado. If we go further back, every team, you know,
Doughty and
pretty
Keith
much
and Seabrook, and yeah,
Doughty and Keith and Seabrook. Like you've had guys. Letang, when he was healthy, like I think you had mentioned it the other day. You go back to Pittsburgh with a hurt Letang to be the last team without an absolute stud D to win. And before that, you have to go back to 2006 and go Carolina against Edmonton, where, I mean, Edmonton had a stud D on the other side. It's like teams that win have that stud D that's playing 30 to 35 minutes a night. That's just teams that win do. And, you know, Makar being able to step into that as soon as he has for Colorado is an absolute game changer. Massive.
And it's so disheartening that they're missing Gerard, and like Bowen Byram is getting it. He looks like he's getting better every game. Like it's crazy to think that they could almost have 2 Makars on their team with Byram and him. Like then they're playing together. Like it's ridiculous how they can move around the ice and dominate from the back end. They won't be able to afford Byram soon. You'd have to think that they'd be looking to move him for something in the next few years.
Yeah, milk him while you can for sure. Then when the big contract comes, things might be a little more difficult. They're going to have to give McKinnon, who's on a sweetheart deal, a massive contract here as well. Cass, if you're Tampa, if you're John Cooper, how do you approach this? You've won back-to-back Stanley Cups. You've been down 2-0. You've faced elimination twice against the Toronto Maple Leafs as well. Like there's no new scenario, I think, that Tampa Bay is facing here. Like they've basically handled all of it so far, except you haven't had to do it against this Colorado team. So how do you approach it if you're Cooper in Tampa?
Well, you're gonna roll with the hockey cliches, all of them, all of the cliches. You're gonna use all of them, every single one, multiple times. You know, stick with the process. Control what you can control.
Shift at a time.
Been here before. Shift at a time mentality. Game at a time mentality. You're hitting all those. You know, we're a better team at home. This is our building. We defend our barn, and they do play well at home. You're just hitting like all of those, and you're running with them. That's what you're running. And you do that, Dusty, because it's worked for you. It's worked this playoffs. It's worked the last 2 playoffs. Anytime you've been in a difficult situation, and they've been in difficult situations before. This isn't the first time they've been down 2 games in a series this playoffs. So, you know, they're going to run with that. What'll be really interesting to me is if they're down after the first period, or down early in the first period, to see how they respond. That's going to be what's interesting to me. You know, what does Cooper do then? If they lose this one, how does Cooper handle it? How do they play out the rest of the series? Are they able to actually win a game, or do they just fold up? Like it'll be interesting.
I like the fact, Gager, that Cass is right. I mean, every cliche in the world is going to be dropped here. But the funniest thing is that maybe it's another one that hits home, and it all comes down to goaltending in the end anyway. Like Vasilevsky's going to have to be brilliant.
Yeah, and like I said, they have to find a way to get to Kemper, I think, because that's the weakest part of the Avalanche's team by the looks of it. But yeah, they got to be feeling really good about themselves, though, the Avalanche getting a 7 spot on the big cat there. So I don't know. It's I'm looking forward to the game, but And it's so weird because these guys, they're all older. They've been in the situation before. I'd love to hear the cliches in there. Actually, it would be hilarious to just hear we got to take the wind out of their sails, and just it would almost be laughable hearing them all and stuff. One game at a time, one shift. It's just it would be great, and can't wait to hear all the announcers start saying it.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of that too.
It's going to be 2 hours of Ron McLean talking about something that happened in the 1920s, referencing it to taking it one step at a time here. It'll be great.
Hey, before we wrap up, this popped up while we were doing the episode, so I just want to kind of take a trip down memory lane here. 30 years ago today, Eric Lindros was traded from Quebec to Philadelphia. 30 years ago, this happened. It was Lindros for Forsberg, Hextall, Steve Duchesne, who was a good defenseman, Kerry Huffman, Mike Ricci, Chris Simon, $15 million in cash, a 93 first-round pick that became Jocelyn Thibault, who was eventually moved for Patrick Waugh, and then a 1994 first-round pick, which was 10th overall, and that was Nolan Baumgartner. You would never see a trade like that today. That was, look, Lindros was insane. Like, he was a man among children, even in the National Hockey League. But, Cass, can you believe they gave up that much to get him? Like, that's insane.
You just hear all those names and who they turned into. It's like, would you look at like a Lindros for Forsberg? And
he was in that trade, though, wasn't he?
Yeah, Forsberg was in there.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah,
that's
he
what
was
I'm
in there
saying.
as well.
Like, if we just knowing what we know about Forsberg and how good he was, like, and everything that turned into is like, what a steep price to pay. Insane. It's kind of sad that we don't have trades like that anymore. But man, it's pretty nuts. Like the return that now Colorado got out of it. Like, that's just, ended up being pretty sweet deal for them ultimately.
I remember the hockey news, reading the hockey news after that trade, and it was a poll of whatever, was it 29 GMs in the league or 30 GMs at the time, whatever it was, that all of them were asked, would they trade Lindros for Forsberg? This was a few years later when stuff, and only 2 of them said, like, straight up, not let alone all the other things that were included in the deal, just a 1-for-1 Forsberg Lindros. Only 2 GMs said they would trade for Lindros and they would keep Forsberg.
That's absolutely insane. Of course, there was another trade that was on the table with the New York Rangers, which also would have been pretty crazy, which I believe was Tony Amonte, Kovalev, Nemchinov, James Patrick, their choice of Van Beesbrook or Richter, along with several first-round picks and possibly up to $20 million. So it wasn't just one team that was crazy. I mean, there was a straight-up legit bidding war for Eric Lindros, which was phenomenal to see. And I wish we could have things like that nowadays. Can you imagine Connor Bedard gets drafted, doesn't want to go wherever he's drafted? I'm just using it because he's the next big name that's coming along, and gets traded in a deal for like 11 pieces. And good pieces. Like Mike Ricci, who was in that deal. Ricci was drafted top 5 himself. Like, it's just, yeah, it's pretty impressive deal. Very sad that happened 30 years ago, though. That makes me feel a little bit old. Cass, you're not out at the cabin all week, buddy? Are you setting up shop out there or what?
No, I'm back this afternoon. So, yeah, we're just out here for a little some Father's Day festivities, and
that's nice.
Back at it. So
that's fun. So you got to go out there. Gager got his medal. I didn't have to go to the circus. So in the end, we all had an absolutely amazing Father's Day. That's great. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Two Guys and a Goalie. It's always brought to you by our friends at CoolBet, where you can still get series odds, of course, on the Stanley Cup Finals. So if you like Tampa to complete some sort of miraculous comeback, you get some pretty good value on it over there against the Colorado Avalanche. If you've not yet signed up for an account at CoolBet, make sure you do. Use the code 2GUYS when you sign up. Boys, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you a little bit later on.